This is part 2 of my learning resource. The 1967 referendum was one of the most historical acts to pass through Australian legislation. After 10 years of campaigning and fighting for the most basic of human rights and recognition, a referendum on Indigenous recognition within the Australian Constitution was held. Nearly 91% of Australia voted to amend the Constitution. This amendment was seen to publicly recognise the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as full Australian citizens, finally. In 1967, Gough Whitlam stated that if Australia fails to write yes to the proposal on Aborigines, the rest of the world will believe that we have neither comprehension nor compassion. This is a great discussion question and will open so many avenues for chats within the classroom. This for our people meant that we were no longer counted as flora and fauna, we had the right to vote, and federal government was now in charge of making laws that directly affected our people. We've jumped a fair way down the line, but let's jump to 2007, which saw the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples presented and adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. This was a pivotal moment in establishing the framework of minimum standards for the survival, dignity, and well-being of Indigenous peoples around the world. There were 4 countries that at first did not sign the declaration. These countries won't come as a surprise to you. They were Australia, the United States, New Zealand, and Canada, 4 countries with strikingly similar colonial histories and concerns. However, Australia did eventually come to the table and sign it in 2000. This declaration also elaborates on existing human rights standards and fundamental freedoms as they apply to all Indigenous peoples, including our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander First Nations peoples of Australia. The 3 main points that I think are most relevant to Australia I have listed in the past 3 slides. Take a moment to read these, go and have a look at the UN Declaration of Rights, and let me know how you feel with the next question, because it's a tough one to go ahead with. Now let's realistically ask ourselves, is this happening in Australia for our First Nations people? First Nations citizenship, from a proud Wiradjuri and Darug woman, who's grown up in a family that has played significant roles within the fight for these legislative changes and basic human rights. It looks like this. Acknowledgement and return of land to the traditional owners, no gaps within our health, education rates, or detainment and incarceration rates. It looks like having ownership over the lands that we have always looked after. It looks like the acknowledgement and apologies for 3 centuries of wrongdoings, including policies that were aimed to completely wipe out an entire culture. It looks like First Nations people having places within Parliament to make decisions for our people, from our people.